Oh yeah, you have to walk all the way around this time. That's funny.
Boy, that is bright, ain't it? That is pretty bright. We're trying something new today because of the movie Yojimbo.
For a while, I kept thinking like, this is not gonna work because I can't see.
Well, I'm gonna be looking at you a lot for this video as a result of this.
Yeah.
But
I think I'm happy with how it looks.
I hope. I mean, it looks like it looks cool.
Yeah.
The shadows in the background here and sort of the spooky light from the bottom and on the side here.
Yeah.
I tried to make the shot look as much like the movie Yojimbo as possible. I wanted to try something a little creative this time and put a little effort into.
Do you remember
making it look that way? I might even make this black and white, by the way.
Yeah. Do you remember what scene they used that type of lighting?
Like this, there was a scene when they're inside. I think the bar, which like the nice old guy that he meets when he enters the town. There's like a reflection of them against the wall.
When he was eating.
Yes, yeah.
He's giving him like his info dumping.
Yeah, that really was. He just arrives in town. He's like, hey, I want some water and I want to eat all your food. And he's like, oh,
I don't have money.
He's like, all right, yeah. He's like, you can't pay me, but I'm gonna make you pay by listening to hours of my stupid stories. So
that's funny.
So in Yojimbo, they have the samurai that doesn't have a job. Allegedly, what happened is like in the year 1860, a dynasty had just ended or whatever. Mm-hmm. So maybe like an emperor died or something. So like hundreds of these samurais don't have a job anymore, basically, because their owner's gone. So he's wandering around the countryside. This samurai has no money, has nothing, is shown wearing like really shabby sandals. And just basically looking for anything that he can get his hands on to like eat or whatever.
Did I miss that? If they showcase this
in the beginning. There's a nice scene. So first of all, the music is playing in the beginning, and it's a really
I love the music in this movie. Yeah, it's so good.
It was like experimental and jazzy, and so the first 15 whatever.
But you're right about what you said though. It did have these elements, but there was also this larger than life energy to it. Like this is like a symphony of people doing this together.
I think it was also very like Japanese in a certain way. Like they had the Japanese sounds of like the drums in there and like that. What's that thing that goes yo? How's it go?
Yo.
the Japanese instrument that just sounds like yo. So there's some stuff in the music that I think was like distinctly Japanese-ish, while also being like kind of a rip-off or a representation of like American big band swing kind of jazz music. I think so. I think it was kind of a West meets East intentional hybrid or something like that. Like maybe he was trying to appeal to like the American audience in more of a way or something like that.
And like in general, I feel like the score for this movie did a lot of the heavy lifting. Yeah. Like it contributed so much of the vibe that the movie was going for, like the energy that was actually being portrayed on the screen.
Well, there was big sections where there was no talking at all, and all you could do was just listen to the music.
Most of the opening was like that, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when he's walking through like fields to get to the town. Mm-hmm. And so during one of those scenes when he's walking and we're listening to the music, they pan, kind of from his head to his feet, and it's like he's a little shabby. He's still a samurai, but he needs a little shower or something.
Yeah, it's a bit worn.
Mm-hmm. And so he's shrugging and stuff like that. And so gets to the town, right? And the first person that he meets in the town, which is empty, basically is an old guy who kind of grabs him and rushes him off the street, Yeah. And we get our first exposition dump.
I remember it. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so the old guy is named Ganji. Not Ganja, but Ganji.
Ganji was the first person he went?
Ganji was the old guy that owns the bar.
But no, before that...
Yeah.
He got to the town because he heard...
That's right. You're right. At the very beginning of the movie, as he's walking down the street, like he asks a farmer for water, and the farmer's like, hold on a second. Yeah. And he's like arguing with his son, and he's like, and the son's like, I'm going to run away, Dad, and I'm going to join the army, and I'm going to fight in the war, because if I stay with you and farm, I'm going to be poor, but if I fight in the war and I live, I might get nice stuff. And so his dad's like, you're a fool, you're going to die out there. And he's like, I don't care. Like,
class struggles have been going on.
And so the son runs
since
off.
the beginning of humanity.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like it's interesting that this was made in 1961. How relevant it still is to today. You know the difference in the way the samurais are treated versus the peasants and the farmers, right?
Class struggles.
Mm-hmm. So I think obviously that's an important thing to Akira Kurosawa is like the class structure, you know, of feudal Japan or whatever, the older Edo empires where there were the samurais and everything, and like how everyone had to respect them. No one bats an arm when he cuts this guy's arm off with a sword. You know,
yeah, they were terrified.
Yeah,
they were bona fide terrified. Everybody had so much respect for this man because they all knew they couldn't measure. None of them could take him down.
Yeah. He definitely was like an unstoppable like force, like the Rock or like Ludacris in the Fast and the Furious. He doesn't die.
yeah, that's true.
Just so Yojimbo's not going to do any dying in this movie. Obviously, he's the quintessential like he's the primeval badass. So like you know like Jackie Chan in the 70s and stuff, Enter the Dragon. He was the badass.
That's official terminology.
I just made that term up. The primeval badass. He's the progenitor of badassery in a certain way. You know, you got Arnold, right? Who's killing the Predator. You got Sylvester Stallone, who's beating up Apollo Creed, right? You've got these heroes, right? And this was the original hero. He was Clint Eastwood with a gun.
Apollo actually won the first movie, didn't he?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's Clint Eastwood without a gun, so to speak. He's a badass.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, he gets there, right? He meets Ganji, the old guy. And Ganji's all like, I'm going to rehash this diatribe quickly because it's not that interesting in my opinion.
But Ganji is the input for both Yojimbo as a character and us as an audience.
Yes, he is sort of
He lays the groundwork for us to like, this is what's going on in town.
In some ways,
right?
like he lives at the end, right? And so in some ways, this is the story of Ganji in a certain sense. He like is kind of the samurai, you know, who calls himself Sanjuro. He's like his right-hand man in some ways, like when you really think about it, you know? Like
that is true. He became his confidant, sidekick.
Like it would be upsetting, obviously, if the samurai died, and it would be upsetting if Ganji died, the old guy that helps him and gives him food. And they have an interesting relationship too. Ganji's clearly annoyed by him, but like he wants someone to talk to desperately, and so he's willing to give him all of his food and water in exchange for just
when you think about it, when you exclude the gangs from the town, how many people were actually in that town? If you had to,
the farmer's wife, that got kidnapped,
and then
the mayor,
the guy that told the time,
the sake owner,
the guy that told the time, and the coffee maker.
Was the guy that told the time the mayor? Was that him, or was that
no? That was a different
guy. Okay.
Yeah, it was a different guy.
But like, there's like 6 people besides the gang.
Yeah, exactly. Like that town was tiny.
I will say that the cast feels bigger, like than it actually is in here, and like in this movie, I'm sure there's like 20 or 25 people in total that ever get shown on the screen. But you get the feeling that it's a bigger town of probably a couple hundred people anyway. Like they really just mostly show shots down one street or like around another corner. I think the whole town is like basically one street and around a corner, like a little movie set that they like made seem like it's a lot bigger village than it really is. But the whole thing, like when you think about it, is probably like 4 buildings.
Honestly, yeah. All that actually happens in that main street, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's like the guy's bar where they open this window slit to like look at the confrontation that's happening on the street over and over again. There's the sake brewer's place, who's the competing mayor guy.
Yeah, we do have scenes there as well.
So there's the bar. There's the sake brewer that sells to the bar, of course. And then there's the hideout of like Ushi Tora, which is a big house. And then there's the hideout of Seibe, who's the guy that runs the gambling house. Yeah. So there's like a gambling house, you know, a bar, a sake brewery, and a really rich guy's house. That's like the 4 buildings that are ever shown in the movie. But it feels like the bigger world.
Yeah, they're opposing gangs, but they're across the street from one another.
Literally, they could like hear each other pee.
I thought that was funny.
Courtesy Flash.
That's really good.
So yeah, Ushi Tora and Seibe, they're both gangsters, all right, And Ushitora used to be...
Which I did not get, by the way.
No, they're gentlemen.
No, I mean, I did get that Ushitora was like a mobster, but I didn't get that read from Saving, even though immediately after his interaction, he's talking about backstabbing our main character.
Mm-hmm.
But
he's more underhanded.
Yeah, I missed the initial exposition where it told us that he was one of the gang leaders.
So like this.
For the whole movie, I thought that they were the good guys.
Yeah. Well, in a way, they were though, because even though there's two bad guys in this movie, which is Ushitora and Seibei, and Ushitora's nephew or whatever, that guy with the gun, who was. You remember that guy? He was.
Wasn't that Ushitora's son? Didn't he have two sons?
Yoichiro? No, it wasn't him. Uno, that's his name?
Yeah.
So who is Uno, though? Uno's related to Ushitora.
Yoshiro was the other one, right?
What's that?
Wasn't Yoshiro the other one?
Yeah, that's the son of Ushitora. Of Seibei.
Oh.
I'm sorry, of Seibei, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm a little bit confused, to be honest with you, on some of the cast or whatever. But whoever the younger guy was with the gun Uno is obviously like a standout villain. Uno has like this creepy dead smile kind of thing, like a Joker thing. Like
he looks the most different out of everybody else in the movie, I think.
He has like a stare that kind of goes through you, and like the beautiful gun, because like everybody's poor there, right? But he shows up with this really expensive looking gun and like nicer clothes.
Yes, he does.
So he obviously stands out. But Uno is, I think he's the big bad. What do you think?
If there was to be a main antagonist, it would be Uno. Yeah,
he was like psychotic, He like took great pleasure when he burned
he's
down
the one
house.
that sniffed him out. Our main character.
That's right.
Yeah.
So anyway,
and he was always the one that was most suspicious of him, all throughout the movie. Yeah, since he showed up.
He was kind of right on.
Yeah, he was.
So it's interesting. So
he was right on the money.
The samurai that shows up, Sanjuro, is hungry, looking for food, and he decides like he can read people so well, people's personalities, that he can instantly judge that the situation won't be deadly to him, and he can make some money out of it by scamming both sides.
Yeah.
So they're Yojimbo means bodyguard, right? And so they both sides, Ushitora's side and Seibei's side want, what's his name, Sanjuro, to protect them, to be their bodyguard. So he's like, talks to them, each crime boss, and he's like, you know what? You need to pay me a little bit more. No, I'm going to see what your friend there is, going to give me for a competing offer. He plays them to try to get money out of them originally. So that's the reason why he sticks around originally. Yeah. To make money.
To make more money, yeah.
And so I thought that was kind of like an interesting motivation to get him in there. And it's relatable, right?
But something I also thought, maybe he did want to get money, but I think he told Genja, was it, right? The shopkeeper?
Ganji.
I think he told Ganji initially his plan. Because you remember that Ganji like kicked him out of his place saying that everybody in this town's crazy, but you're the craziest.
Yeah.
I think from the get-go, I think he was forthcoming with Ganji and told him like, I'm going to get them to fight each other so I don't have to do the fighting.
And so he actually covered for him a couple times. Like you were saying, so later on, Uno. So Ushitora's like, right-hand henchman, evil villain, Darth Vader guy, Uno.
I thought it was his son, yeah.
He suspects that the samurai is not actually there to be his bodyguard, and he's just double-crossing both of them and starting crap. Because he does start crap. To be honest, he's
so much.
He's
crap.
Not like a villain that's like above it all, like Batman. He's a little bit of a shit stirrer.
The whole time, it's his put in the seas of conflict between them. Lying, telling them that the other group did this thing that he himself did. Mm-hmm. That was pretty good.
There's another, I think, semi-important plot line in there, which is there's farmers inside this village, and one of the farmers owes a gambling debt to Ushitora that he can't pay. So Ushitora like kidnaps his wife to make her like serve as his mistress or whatever, sort of against her will. And so the samurai learns about this, right? And finds out in what building that they're hiding the kidnapped wife, which is coincidentally 6 feet over that way.
It's a small town.
It's a small town. And so he goes in this building and kills everyone inside the building that's like keeping this girl kidnapped and gives her back to her husband. And then he destroys the house where the girl was being kidnapped and like completely knocks over every painting. I'm telling you, smashes all the dishes in the dishwasher. Completely ransacks the place. Cuts open bags full of beans or something that spill all over the floor. Great sound effects, by the way. And this whole thing, the sound of the beans falling out of the bag and the floor was like it was a crescendo. It was so incredible. Extremely loud. The sound of those beans hitting the ground, obviously that wasn't the way it sounded when they recorded live on the set. It was Foley work, and I just thought that was pretty impressive. But so he gives the kidnapped woman back to her husband, says, "Get out of here." And they thank him, and he ransacks the place. And then when Ushitora shows up, and is like, "What the hell? What happened to my woman?" He's like, "Seibei's guys came over here and ransacked the place, he said also that you stink."
Yeah, and that was also the first time. Maybe we see smaller hints throughout the movie, but that's the first time we see him do like a grand gesture of honor-bound gesture, you could say.
You're completely right.
Yeah, because in that moment he was double. What's this word for when an investigator, a secret spy, double agent?
Oh yeah, he was a double agent. Yeah, he was working both sides.
Yeah,
that's the
he was working
term.
both
James
sides.
Bond,
and he got 30 Ryu, I guess, which is the currency.
Ryo, yeah.
Yeah, from Uru.
I guess that's a lot of money, right?
Ushitora,
yeah.
And he gave the woman that was kidnapped that money and her family so they could escape town and
I did not catch
and go somewhere else. Yeah.
I did not know he gave the money to them.
Yeah. Wow. Which is like, that's the first selfless gesture we see him. Well, I don't think it's the first selfless gesture we see him do, but it's like the first round one. Yeah, where it shows like
the biggest. Yeah.
It had his objective had transcended the money goal at that point. And like I guess he really did want to clean up the town. Like his honor came before his necessity.
I do think that sort of is like you're saying, the moment that he went from sort of an anti-hero or like a reluctant hero to a full-blown hero.
Yeah.
He made the decision that this is no longer about money. He was literally giving the money away, which is his previous motivation. Did a complete 180 change in his character.
Yeah, at the end, he ended up with no money, right?
And gave that woman, that kidnapped woman, all his money, reunited her with her husband, because I guess he can stand them killing each other, but he can't stand a woman being involved or them, because I think Seibei, even though he was the nicer of the two, was also doing like some kind of girl selling nefarious business.
Yeah, that's.
I'm trying to think about
all the women in town
YouTube censors
were under him.
Yeah, that's right. So he was a bit of a pimp, to excuse my phrase, and so he didn't like that. So that's the first time he actually does something nice. He was being a kind of a jerk the whole time, and he actually does something nice for someone finally. And so for whatever reason, Ushitora's right-hand man,
and he puts the 20 on Seibei too. He goes Seibei came in here, his men. He came in with 15, 25 men.
Yeah, and ransacked the place. And made him think that the other side did it. Even though it was him. Because he killed everyone. All the witnesses were gone. They couldn't, like I said, he's the penultimate badass.
Yeah, no one can spill the beans.
He's the primeval badass.
The primeval badass.
So anyway, they retaliate, right? And then Uno finds out eventually that the Ronin, Sanjuro, actually was the one that let the girl go. So they kidnap him or whatever, beat him up, lock him up, kick the crap out of him, and they're basically about to kill him. And for whatever reason, he escapes, which I forget how he escaped or whatever, but he crawls underneath, literally he can't move his legs, so he's crawling underneath the shadows of the porch and underneath the house and everything. And he makes his way to Ganji's bar. Ganji takes him in, hides him behind a rug when they come in there looking for him because they know he escaped, which Ganji is, he's always a fucking a dude.
Yeah.
He's a straight guy. The guy, bro. When you're
when you think about it, he's a real hero of the story.
Ganji's your guy.
Yeah, he's a real hero.
He honestly is the only one that's consistent throughout it. And so Ganji manages to put the Sanjuro in a brewing barrel, some kind of alcohol brewing barrel, big enough to fit a human in, and convinces I think one of Seibei's henchmen to carry it. He originally doesn't want to help, but he's like, you're just a wimp. That's why you don't want to help. He's like, I'm not a wimp. How long do I have to carry it for? Kind of like
He's a very simple-minded. Yeah.
Very simple-minded guy. And so after getting beat up and not being able to walk, he recovers after a while at a temple. And he hears that he's going to leave, I think, but he hears from someone, like someone runs up to the graveyard from the village and is like, they kidnapped Ganji and they tied him up and they're going to kill him. And he's like, you don't mess with Ganji. I'm going back, baby. I'm recovered. He gives him a sword, because they took his sword. So he has some other guy's sword that he's not comfortable with, and he takes it and he comes back to the village, basically. And that's when the big confrontation comes down. The bongo drums are banging and the music's going at its loudest and everything. And I think this is one of the coolest scenes ever, the showdown scene. Like, what'd you think when he comes back?
He is the primordial badass.
Yep.
He came in and shred them. He shred everybody that stood in his way. Mm-hmm. But he did that throughout the whole movie. Every time his sword came out of
the sheath,
the sheath, he fucked shit up.
Oh. It's true. Like,
I can say that guy.
He's a guy that's calm and then explosive and fast with his sword. And like Kill Bill and other kinds of samurai movies since then.
Yeah,
it's obvious they're paying reference to this. I feel like I don't know much about the history of Japanese movies and stuff, but that's my first portrayal of seeing a sword fight in a movie or something.
Is this movie older than Seven Samurai?
Or I think the Seven Samurai was 5 years after this, 1966, and this was 61, so this was older. Yeah,
it's incredible for the time.
Well,
it's a phenomenal job.
I think lighting was awesome, which I tried to do something here with it today. I'm not quite as good or whatever. We don't have those enormous 17-foot tall lights that require fucking 18 generators to power that he had access to.
Quite frankly, the experience.
Another thing that's cool, I also liked, is that the background is always in focus and the characters. Mm-hmm. And so in order to do that, you've got to have a really high f-stop number on your camera, which doesn't let in as much light. And there's some of these shots at nighttime where if you're shooting at an f11 or an f16 or whatever, it's super dark. In addition to it already being dark out, so he must have had these enormous, incredible bright lights to shine on people at night, and they even painted some of their faces white to reflect the light even more.
Yeah, it looked phenomenal. The town looked great at night. It looks incredibly good.
So I guess the cinematographer for this movie was a guy named Kazuo Miyagawa. So the one that actually operated the camera, and I don't know who the gaffer was, who the lighting people were, what the lighting team was, but it's obvious that they put incredible amounts of effort into that, and into things the wind machines to make the wind stir up when they're walking around. Every shot, there was some scene where he was recovering in the graveyard at that temple, and he walks out after being alerted that they've tied up Ganji, and the river's flowing by really fast. Yeah. There's always this movement happening in the background, which is
and the wind, the dust.
Yes, more of the sound effect. Yeah, he has these enormous, again, 17-foot tall fans that require 1 billion generators to operate that blow tornado-style winds at them. It's completely manufactured on the spot.
It's incredible, though. Such a good job.
I really liked it. I mean, the story for me is maybe the weakest part of this. I'll be honest with you. I think the samurais are cool, but I didn't care, know or care much about what's going on. There was such a big cast. What did you think of the story kind of aspect? Were you able to follow it? Because I wasn't able to follow it.
There were definitely bits and pieces of information that painted a clearer picture that I missed. But overall, I feel like I generally had not a hard time following the plot wise. I was confused. I for a long time I really didn't know in which direction the movie was trying to head to.
Yeah.
What was really going on and what was trying to happen. And I questioned a lot of things that happened as well. Because I kept thinking that a lot of maybe there's going to be a lot of casualties, unnecessary casualties. But I was under the false impression that one of the sides in the conflict was they were the good guys. I thought one half of the gang were just the citizens of the town, So yeah, I kept thinking like, oh, all these innocent people are getting chopped off and killed, but they weren't innocent.
They were all just gangsters.
Yeah, they were all gangsters
or gamblers or
yeah,
something.
so there were definitely certain crucial pieces of the puzzle that I did not have.
Yeah, it was honestly the same for me too.
Yeah, for a large chunk of the movie, my head canon was like completely off.
I did a little bit of reading after we finished watching, a couple minutes before doing this, of like what the names of the characters were, because I didn't even know like Ushitora, like Seibei and Tazemon and Sanjuro. Didn't know their names.
I think Ushitora and Uno were the only ones that I actually kind of learned throughout the movie.
Yeah, I didn't even catch those. So I had I think I understood who was aligned with who for the most part, but like it was kind of hard to follow for me. And part of that is obviously it's like Japanese or whatever, so I'm trying to catch up with the subtitles and everything like that. Like I know I sound like a typical kind of complainer here.
Through a lot of the movie, just refer to them by their character, who the character was. Oh, this is that person's son. This is that person's son.
Yeah, they did that. Like,
this is this person's wife.
Bring Yoichiro.
This is the shopkeeper.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just call them by their positions in society.
I kind of appreciated that, honestly. And they did have a little bit of a society going on there, and he shook it up, and so he takes everybody out. You know what I mean? At the end sequence there. He
did.
The guy with the gun, he pulls the gun out, he tries to shoot him with the gun, but he's so fast, he grabs his shuriken. And
he liberated the town of like 6 people.
Right. All 3.5 of them are going to live happily ever after in this town.
They have peace and quiet now.
Yeah, that's right. They finally got that much needed peace and quiet that we've been searching for forever.
There can't be a conflict if you eliminate 98% of the society.
That sort of is the Yojimbo school of problem solving, is to just slash your way through everything, you know?
That's true.
And so a couple of interesting things about this. One of the producers on this movie is a guy named Tomoyuki Tanaka, who actually was the co-creator of Godzilla. So the guy, one of the guys that created the miniature movement there, funded the money. One of the things I learned recently is like in order to be called a producer on a movie, you have to raise at least 25% of the money for it.
Really?
Or maybe it's to be like an executive producer. I don't know.
I didn't know that.
But this guy was, and so he gave at least 25% of the budget to this movie. Which I thought was
this
cool.
movie had a lot of extras.
I mean, there definitely were parts of it, yes, where like the whole gang is out there on the street. Like, what was there, like 15, 16, 17, 20 guys when
I would say like
Eastside
had like 20 people.
Yeah, there's a scene where he first comes to the village and they're all surrounding him and they have this great choreographed laugh, ha 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 ha, kind of thing.
Eastside had like 20 people. There were all the women. There were characters that showed up throughout the movie as well. Like a handful of characters that showed up. Like lots of people. The really good costume work. I thought the sets looked great. Yeah. The lighting was good. The music, I can go back to the music, but the music was like the highlight of this movie for me was the music. Yeah. The music was so good.
I think that that was important for me too. I think maybe the reason why this works, and I probably said this before, is like the immersion and the world building was so complete in this with like the language and the acting and like the makeup and the costumes. Like hair and makeup was, let's just be honest, completely on point. But I really believed that this was like a world, you know, and that these were real people. Yeah. I never had like a minute of like belief where I didn't believe in it.
Like this actually happened, yeah.
So we got 28:47 right now. So we got about like 1 minute left or so. So each of us have about like 30 seconds or so to give our final like thought. What's your final thought on this one?
Honestly, I love this movie. I think it was a great watching experience, and I would recommend anybody who is even slightly interested in giving it the opportunity. It's definitely it's surprising to see how certain tropes that
introduced here. Like
well, I don't know if it's introduced here, but
let's say perfected here.
Yeah, how they have carried on. How the legacy of this movie has carried on throughout the years and has inspired and has become part of the formation of lots of other projects that have come to be.
What's your score out of 10?
I would give this an 8, maybe a 9, and I don't think I'm out of line there. It's a really good movie.
I'm going to agree with you as well, and I'm going to give this an 8.5 right there. It's inventive, it's different, it's original, it's exciting. It inspired a lot of good things. I loved it.
Great pacing. There's always something going on.